I'm Amelie and welcome once again to my channel. Today I'm going to be continuing my Modao Sushi book report series, and I'm going to be talking about chapters 6 to 10. And these chapters are also called the Arrogance arc. And this is going to be a little bit longer than the last one. The last one was only 3 chapters long. This one is 5. But not only that, but these 5 chapters are actually absolutely packed with not only action, but also interesting things to talk about. So I can anticipate that this video is going to be a little bit long. So, strap in. So in the last video, I talked about the other arc, which is aggression. And that arc mostly deals with what happened at Mo Manor. The arm showing up, the deaths, the Lan juniors working there, Wei Wuxian helping them, Lan Wangji appearing. Actually, he doesn't appear. He appears from a distance. He's mentioned, but I don't think he actually physically appears in the chapter. I think he intervenes from afar. But just to tempt us to continue reading so we can see him. But in that part, he's not there. But that is enough to, make Wei Wuxian want to run, because we have to remember that Wei Wuxian thinks that Lan Wangji wants to kill them. He thinks that he was part of the whole movement that was against him before his death, and that he took part in all of that, and that obviously he's not going to take very well the fact that he has resurrected. So the moment he hears about Lan Wangji being there is the moment that he just takes off. He steals a donkey before that, and then he runs off. And chapter 6 from, this is the first chapter of the Arrogance arc, starts more or less in the same place. It's a few days have happened, so a few days Wei Wuxian has been traveling with this donkey. But it hasn't been a good experience for him, because apparently this donkey is a nightmare. And I just want to say, parentheses, I actually know what the name of the donkey is, or at least the name that he has in the live action. I'm pretty sure also in the donghua he's called like that, but in these 5 chapters he's always referred to as the donkey. He's never referred to as by name, so I'm going to continue calling him the donkey, but I'm just going to say I know who he is. I'm also talking about him as a he, but I'm not actually sure the gender of this donkey, and I'm pretty sure that in all these chapters he's referred as it. But I don't know. I always have difficulty referring even to animals as it. So I guess I don't know why my default was calling it he. But I guess that's what's going to come naturally. So I'm going to keep referring to him as a he. So this donkey, a nightmare. Apparently he's very picky with what he eats. He only like the best grass, very particular. And when he doesn't get what he wants, he just acts out. So he attacks Wei Wuxian. He kicks him. He refuses to walk. A literal nightmare. So Wei Wuxian is not very happy about that. He starts the chapter just complaining how hard to please this donkey is. But they continue advancing, and they find, a well and a tree. But the focus here is specifically the well. So they sit down there to drink some water and all of that. What one does when you find a well in these times. So they are there hanging out in this well, and a group of rural villagers approach, and they are described as having rustic airs. So this group of villagers, they see Wei Wuxian next to the well. Wei Wuxian is wearing makeup. They see this donkey who's acting crazy. So obviously they don't want to get close, but they're also very hot. They want that water. So they are standing there, not know what to do. They hesitate, moving forward. And Wei Wuxian noticed this, and he tries to maybe make them more comfortable, or at least showing them that he's not going to do anything, that they can come. So he moves, he empties his space, removes himself a little bit from that situation. So they see that he's harmless, and they finally decide to come over. And what he noticed when they come over is that one of the men is using a compass, but he's not using a regular compass like the ones that point north, but rather a compass of evil. And compasses of evil apparently do exactly what it says in the title. They show evil. They show you the direction of evil. And by this, Wei Wuxian realizes that this group of people is not just like peasants or anything like that, but they are actually cultivators. But they are cultivators from smaller clans. And what he says about small clans is that we have the big clans who are rich, who are affluent, who are very powerful, and, you know, they have a lot of prestige. And then you have smaller clans that are maybe a little bit more rustic, let's say, as he described them. And these cultivation clans often go night hunting in this way. And it explains a little bit about what night hunting is, which is exactly what you would expect, except it doesn't happen, or it doesn't necessarily happen at night. Obviously, the hunting part is easy. They hunt things, evil beings, but they call it night hunting because often these beings appear at night. But I don't think it's necessarily that it has to be at night. It's just how they call it. So, a lot of these clans often participate in this type of night hunts because they think that if they participate and they manage to capture something, something big or something important, then maybe they will treat it seriously and they will gain some prestige for their clan. So that's what is happening there. And in the past few days, Wei Wuxian has been trying to find what he calls, he's trying to find a ghost. But apparently he has found several small ghosts that they are not interest for him. So what he wants is a soldier ghost. No, a ghost soldier. That's how they call it. And I'm going to read this verbatim because he wants this ghost soldier to do evil for him. So that's what Wei Wuxian is at what he's trying to look. I assuming that has something to do with the kind of cultivation that he does, but it's an interesting way to put it. Let's just leave it like that. And then there is a girl in this group of cultivators, and she gives him an apple. And Wei Wuxian takes the apple, and this he discovers is the solution to all his problems with his donkey, because his donkey loves apples. So he realizes that if he holds an apple before him, the donkey is going to walk, so he's going to advance. So that is exactly what he does. He takes a string and something, or at least, I don't know if I have the image in my head from, the Untamed, but essentially that's what he does. He puts the apple in front of him and the donkey finally walks. So this is, progress for him. This is great news. And in this way, he manages to reach Dafan Shan. He's in Dafan Mountain, and Dafan Shan, I think, is one particular part of the mountain, I'm guessing. And then we have a small town at the foot of the mountain that is called Buddha's Feet. And he managed to get to this place called Dafan Shan, and what he found is a number of cultivators that are gathered there. A lot of them wearing different uniforms, different colors. So obviously everyone, all of them from different sects or from different clans. And in the middle of this group of cultivators, a discussion is happening about a compass of evil. And the problem with this compass of evil is that it's not showing anything. So they start talking about, the compass of evil, and they discuss who created it, and obviously who can be the creator but Wei Wuxian. But it's interesting because they call him Wei Yin, as, they mention him as the creator of this device. And Wei Wuxian is actually surprised to hear that he's been mentioned because, I don't know, he's just surprised. He thinks a lot of years had happened and had passed, so he assumed that maybe they would have forgotten about him, I think, or something like that. But no, it turns out that he was still very much in the conversation. So he passed this group of cultivators, he's giggling, he's laughing, and then he explains why is it that the compass of evil doesn't work. And there is essentially two reasons. The first reason is that the version that they are using is the first version that he made, that it wasn't specific enough. and that, it's an imprecise version, and that he never had time before he died to make a better version of it. So that's one of the problems of the device. And the other problem is that the creature that they are dealing with, they are looking for a soul eating creature. And that there are two types of monsters. We have high-level monsters high-level creatures, and we have low-level creatures. The low-level creatures are the ones who eat blood and flesh. And then we have the high-level ones that are capable of eating and digesting souls. And that the ones who are capable of, dealing with souls are the ones that are the more rare and are the more powerful. So obviously it's not a common creature. So for him, it's inevitable that this compass was going to make some mistakes when dealing with that. So, Wei Wuxian continues, and he starts sharing the apple with this donkey. And as he does, one by one, like one by you, one by me, they are fixing their relationship, I think. As they are doing that, they bump into the girl that had given him the apple originally. And this girl, she's like in a trance, and she's looking to the mountaintop. And suddenly she starts dancing. And as she's dancing, then her mom appears and she tries to stop her, but then she doesn't. She just continues. And I find out that the name of this girl is Ayam. And then we got this story about what happened in Dafan Mountain. And apparently what happened first is that there was a mountain slide. And that this mountain slide, what did was disturb some burial grounds, and a lot of very old graves were destroyed, and the coffins were exposed to the air. And then, because they were exposed to the air, they were struck by lightning, and then the corpses and the coffins were burned. So a whole mess. So after that happened, they find that essentially people started losing their souls. There is another case. There are several cases that they're mentioned, but specifically the one from Ayan is that she was, she had a fiancé. She was going to marry this guy, and then he was, I think, killed by wolves. And a few days later, she became like a slugger. She became sick. And after some time, eventually she became cured. So it wasn't, this problem that she had, it didn't last long. But evidently there was something that affected her, because after that, I don't think it's something that happened continuously, but, pretty often she kind of goes crazy and starts dancing. And there was also a young father who also lost his soul. So in total, I think it was 7 people. So, everything considered, Wei Wuxian thinks that maybe it was a spirit rather than a beast doing that. And, he explains something more, but there is a lot of explanations, because this video is going to be probably eternal if I explain everything. I'm going to skip some of the explanations if I don't think they are, very pertinent to the story, or not to the story, because obviously they're pertinent to the story. If I think they don't add nothing major, so I'm probably going to skip them. So anyway, Wei Wuxian decides to go up the mountain, and as he was going up the mountain, he sees a lot of people going down with scars on their faces. And they said, as they were coming down, they were complaining that the leader of a big clan was, either fighting them or something like that. I have the quote here, and it says, "Would the leader of a big clan that need to fight over a soul-consuming spirit with us? He probably killed tons of them when he was young." So obviously there is something going on up there. There is someone who is not very happy and definitely attacking this. So in this case, they continue talking, and then they mention a name that we know. They mention none other than Shang Chang, which I think for most is not actually very surprising. So I don't think they say directly that it was him, But they say something like, oh, you shouldn't offend the Jiang clan, and, they shouldn't offend Shang Chang. So I think dots can be connected in this case. And that's pretty much the end of chapter 6. So let's move to chapter 7. And Wei Wuxian continued going up the mountain, and at some point he stopped seeing people, like he was going on his own. And he wonders what happened to the people, because obviously he thinks that some of the people, like half of the people that he saw, maybe stayed at the foot of the mountain, just continuing arguing. And if those people who were coming back, what happened to those that were coming back? If something defeated them or something like that. So at this point, he's thinking about this, and he starts hearing some cries for help. And at this, he gets excited, because at first he assumes that maybe it's an evil creature that is luring people into traps. And how Wei Wuxian is. He gets excited about evil creatures. Actually, it says the eviler, although eviler is not a word, but I'm reading it verbatim. The eviler the creature, the better it was for him. So he got excited, but then he discovers that it's actually these rural cultivators that he had met before. And the problem that they were having is that they were hanging from trees in a golden web. And he comments that this golden web was probably set up by a very wealthy clan. So now he's disappointed, because apparently he's still looking for a servant or minion or an evil spirit person to do things for him. So, there's disappointment there, but he decides that, he's going to help these people. So he's going to call for help, because obviously he doesn't have anything with him. He doesn't have a sword or anything like that. So he's about to call for help when a boy appears wearing light-colored robes and a vermilion mark between his eyebrows. And he describes this boy as being around Lan Zishu's age, so an adolescent. He's carrying arrows with him in a canister, and his clothes are very, very expensive, like very delicate, and they have gold threads, and there is a white peony in front of his chest. And Wei Wuxian's comment is, not how healthy, I assume he's healthy as well, but how wealthy. And obviously he knows by the flower, and also I assume by the color of it, that this guy must be a young master who's studying with the Langling Jin sect. And I have to read that because I'm very used to calling it the Jin sect, but I guess that's the full name, or that is the place. I think Langling was, I don't know. That is how they call it here. And he explains why they use the white peony, why they have the vermilion mark. And then he talks a little bit more about this sect. Nothing good, though. He says that, these guys, they are not great, essentially. And this boy is about to shoot whatever there is there, like whatever he caught in the net. But then he realized that they were humans, and he got angry because, he was expecting to catch some monsters. And he becomes angry. He tells them like they're idiots and all of that. And he mentions that they actually set up 400 of these nets. 400 of these nets. And Wei Wuxian says again how wealthy. So obviously this guy has some money to spare. And the guy Wei Wuxian essentially criticizes this method of night hunting, which is something that I'm going to talk a little bit later. And also he realizes that maybe the people he has seen retreating, they weren't doing it because the prey was too difficult, but because maybe they didn't want to anger this sect. Obviously the Jin sect is very important, so they wouldn't want to anger it. And then we have more information about the Jin sect, specifically that actually Wei Wuxian gathered during the last few days. He gathered a lot of information about the state of the cultivation world, but here he talks specifically about the Jin sect. So it says that the Jin sect is actually, I never heard of this, so I have to read it, the winner of the 100-year-old long cultivational disruption. So because they are the winners, they become sort of like the leaders of the cultivation world, and the leader of the Jin sect becomes the commander of all cultivators. And then he describes the Jin clan as arrogant, as extravagant. It's a group of people that love being on the top, that they train their disciples to do whatever they want to, that they kind of like to bully weaker clans and to humiliate them. Oh, that's a difficult word. And evidently, they like to show their powers, and that's maybe why these people who are in the nets, they are afraid to say anything, because, you wouldn't like to go against somebody like that. But these people, they still, ask them, maybe let us down, perhaps. This boy, I'm struggling because I know who he is, but I'm trying to, don't give us more information that I had found in the book yet. I'm trying to block my knowledge of the story that I got for the Untamed, so I am pretending that I'm reading this for the first time. I know the name, but I'm struggling, to say it. So the boy, he refuses to release them. He says that if he releases them, then they're going to be caught again, and they are a nuisance and things like that. So he's going to leave them there, and maybe after he captures the beast that he's looking for, maybe then he's going to release them. Maybe, if he remembers. And Wei Wuxian knows that, especially because they're looking for this creature that is looking for souls, that is actually very dangerous, because this creature is going to find these guys in a net that they have no way of protecting themselves, and then essentially it's going to gorge on them. It's going to have a banquet. So these guys are going to be sucked dry. Then he hears also the girl, the girl Ayang, the one who gave him the apple, and Wei Wuxian doesn't feel good about what's happening here. So he goes into action. And there's also the donkey here, who, I'm sorry, Wei Wuxian is not the one who goes into action. The donkey goes into action, and Wei Wuxian, who here it says was originally cross-legged on the donkey, which is also another interesting tidbit. He was there, he was chilling on the donkey, and then the donkey heard the sob of the girl, and he decided to do something about it. Whatever it is, this thing the donkey can do, he just runs, he leaps somewhere, and obviously Wei Wuxian is on him, so he goes with him, and the donkey was going to crash against this boy, and this boy already had an arrow in his bow, so he was actually said, you know what, I may as well use it. He was going to shoot the donkey. So Wei Wuxian at the last second, yank the reins and stop him, and that is when the boy see his face, and he sees that, Wei Wuxian sees that the boy recognizes him and actually says, oh, it's you. So, the tone used, it was, again, description from the book, 20% surprise, 80% disgust. So evidently this guy knows him. And, not eventually, in this conversation, Wei Wuxian realizes that Mo Xuanyu is actually the son of Shinguan Shan. He kind of have assumed that he was the son of a smaller sect leader, but no, it was Shinguan Shan. And then we have a little bit about Shinguan Shan. And it says that obviously he's from the Jin sect, he was the leader, and he had a fierce wife that was from a prominent family, and that he was actually scared of this wife, but actually this fear didn't stop him from going after other women. I think that's how they put it in the book, and let's put it as politely as that. So this guy, he just couldn't stop. He was into any other women, and he was continuously going after them. And the thing was that he enjoyed like the casual relationships, but and he had a lot of children. He had a lot of illegitimate children. But the thing is that he got bored very easily. So, he seduced a woman, and then it's very likely that he would abandon her. And then he says another very interesting thing, because of all his illegitimate children, one was the only one that was maybe, I think maybe recognized because he was exceptionally talented. And he is the current leader of the Langling Jin sect, Jingwan Zhao. And, the reason why he's currently the sect leader and not Shinguan Shan is because he died in a pretty embarrassing way. Let's say. Here it describes in a very opaque way. But basically, this guy, he wanted to have sex with a bunch of women at the same time. Apparently, he failed because he was pretty old and he died. And apparently this is something that everybody knows, but they, the other sects consider it like too humiliating to, acknowledge publicly. And the Langling sect obviously doesn't acknowledge it publicly. They just say that they die from overworking himself. And the other sects just agree that yes, that's what happened. Although they all know what actually happened, although they actually don't know what actually happened, but that is another, that is topic for another conversation. Nobody actually says it. And the other tidbit that we have about Shinguan Shan is that along with Shang Chang, like they were the two greatest contributors to the siege of Luangshan Hill. So definitely he was somebody that took, a big part on Wei Wuxian's death. So that is the little story, that is the little parenthesis that we have about Shinguan Shan. Obviously, I'm not going to say anything. I bet there's going to be a lot of occasions that we're going to be talking about his death, so I'm not going to say anything. But that is the official story about, well, not the official story. That is the official and unofficial story of what happened. So this boy insults Wei Wuxian. We go back to the boy. The boy was insulting Wei Wuxian. He was telling him disgusting. He was telling him because he was gay. So, a lot of homophobia happening. Wei Wuxian is not happy about this, and he decided to, he doesn't take kindly to being, humiliated by this punk. So he decided to humiliate him back. And the thing that he says is, what an attitude. I suppose that you didn't have a mother to teach you. And boy, was this the wrong thing to say. So the boys attack Wei Wuxian. The boy attacked Wei Wuxian, and Wei Wuxian, this is another interesting, detail. Wei Wuxian thinks he recognizes the sword that the boy is using. And the boy attacks him, and what Wei Wuxian does is avoid him, but he slaps a talisman onto his back. So, the boy fell to the floor, and he was just there without being able to move. And apparently what happens is not actually that the talisman is doing that, but what I find out by this is that, in fact, there was a ghost who died of gluttony crushing him, so he couldn't move. So that's why he couldn't move. And this is something that I think appears in the Donghua, but, I'll talk about the differences later. So, Wei Wuxian thinks that, even if the ghost is weak, it's still pretty big. So, it's capable of dealing with brats like this boy. So as this boy is on the floor, Wei Wuxian liberates the, rural cultivators, and they run away scared. And in the meantime, the boy is absolutely fuming. He's not happy about this situation. So the boy, criticizes Wei Wuxian because obviously every time that I say Wei Wuxian, if he's interacting with somebody else, I'm actually, they're talking with Mo Xuanyu, although we know it's Wei Wuxian. So this boy criticizes Wei Wuxian because he apparently took the wrong path into demonic cultivation. And Actually, Wei Wuxian thinks that this is something that maybe can play in his favor, because it means that he actually doesn't have to explain why Mo Xuanyu is doing demonic cultivation suddenly. So the boy is not happy. He threatens to call his uncle, and Wei Wuxian doesn't know who this uncle. He said, "Why are you not calling your dad? Why are you calling your uncle?" So that's when we have another voice saying, "I am his uncle. Do you have any last words?" So again, I think we know who this is. And Wei Wuxian knows it too. Already the voice makes, and again, reading verbatim, makes all of the blood from Wei Wuxian's body travel to his head and drain away. And he's thankful that he's wearing makeup, so that, people can tell the difference, so they can tell how he's reacting to this. So what he sees is what he describes as a youth appearing, and he describes there's a lot of effort describing his face, his clothes, his attitude. And also that's when we find out that the boy's name is Jingling. But there is a paragraph describing this youth that appear, and at the end it says, even his posture emitted an air of arrogance and overconfidence. So, that we know who he is. And I would say that is a pretty good description. So this youth tells Jingling to get up, and then Wei Wuxian realizes that he's still under the talisman, so he does, he tries to retrieve it, or he makes the piece of paper retreat or something like that, so the boy can get up, so Jingling can get up. And, he does, and he threatens him again. That's when Wei Wuxian sees the pair, and he thinks that they are very similar, the uncle and the nephew, that, it's clear they have a close resemblance, and they could even pass for brothers. So that's when this guy, who we know is Shang Chang by now, we know that, we've already mentioned he's Shang Chang, and he takes the talisman from Wei Wuxian, and, he looks at it, what is described as full of hostility, and, he destroys it. Wei Wuxian tries to back away. He says, maybe this isn't the best situation for me to be with. But Shang Chang tells Jingling that if he sees something doing that type of cultivation, that he shouldn't break his legs, because Jingling was threatening to, break his leg or something like that. Then JC, I say JC because that's how I have it written in my notes, but I try to say the full name. Shang Chang tells him, no, if you see people like this, you should kill them. So this is permission enough, and Jingling attacks. And, Wei Wuxian thinks that Shang Chang, maybe by this point, maybe he would have let go of the hatred that he felt for him. I don't know why he thought this, but it's very obvious that the opposite is true. It's very, Shang Chang's feelings are very far away from letting go of his hatred. So, Wei Wuxian had, he describes like a little bag, and he was about to take something from it or doing something from it. It wasn't completely clear. But what happens is that another blue sword appear and stop Jingling's attack. And there is a very full description about this sword, because Wei Wuxian recognizes immediately. So there is the description about what it looks like, but Wei Wuxian says that it's a sword that Wei Wuxian has seen many times, and that he had fought beside, but also against it. And he continues describing the sword. Apparently this is a magnificent sword, but he also tells the name of the sword, which is Vision. And, it's obvious who is here. We know Vision. We know who's the owner. So Lan Wangji appeared, and Shang Chang is not very excited about this appearance. What follows after this is an incredibly detailed and lengthy description of Lan Wangji. We have his face, his features, his expression, his clothing. Wei Wuxian mentions that he's always wearing morning clothes, but this is a several paragraph description about the beauty, because it talks about how beautiful he is. Essentially, he described the beauty of Lan Wangji. So that was interesting. That was a very interesting, a very interesting read, especially considering that this is from Wei Wuxian's perspective. So then we have, Shang Chang, which says that, this is another phrase that is interesting. It says that Shang Chang was exceptionally handsome, and this was something that it was recognized, but that when both men stood face to face with each other, it's obvious that he was a few degrees inferior. And again, I feel like this is Wei Wuxian's opinion, and this is told from his perspective, so I think that's what we are meant to believe. So, Shang Chang expresses surprise at Lan Wangji being in such a remote area. And then we have a little bit more, because we didn't have enough. Apparently, there wasn't enough information about Lan Wangji. Here we have a little bit more. And we have this time information about his character and explaining why he's described as being where the chaos is. And, essentially what it says is that, all of the prominent clans usually are looking more to, getting bigger and praise that are going to get them prestige and are going to, make them famous or something like that, or getting them power or showing how much power they have. And that they don't bother with lower level praise. Now, the Lan Wangji is actually the exception that, if he has to hunt something that is low level, he doesn't care because he doesn't do it for fame. And if anybody wanted help, that he would give it. So that was very interesting, especially about his character. And so far, for being an enemy of, or at least somebody that Wei Wuxian considers more or less of an enemy, or somebody who is antagonistic towards him, all of the description is very positive. I don't feel like nothing was negative about what he said. And Shang Chang is not being very polite, or at least not as polite as he should be. And, the juniors that were with Lan Wangji, they noticed, in particularly Lan Jingyi, because we know Lan Jingyi, he's a huge fan of Lan Wangji, as we're going to see. But, he confronts Shang Chang, and Shang Chang is not happy about being talked like that by a junior. So he puts into question how the Gusulan sect teaches its disciples. And it's evident that Lan Wangji doesn't feel like talking at this time. At this time, he's not available for speaking. So he essentially gives Lan Zishu a look, and Lan Zishu communicates for him. And that is when Lan Zishu brings up the use of the nets during the night hunt being unfair, which, Jinglings, again, is not happy about, and he actually says that it's probably the people's fault for stepping into the traps, and not them putting them everywhere. But Lan Wangji is not having any of this bullshit, so essentially he silences Jingling. Shang Chang is not into it. He definitely is not happy. And then we have a little bit about the silencing spell, which is the spell that it's specific of the Lan clan, and essentially it's a spell that stops you from speaking. And what happens is that you will not be able to speak for a certain amount of time, and if you try to force it, then you're going to hurt yourself. And only somebody from the Lan sect can, undo it. So that is the silencing spell. While all of this is happening, and Lan Zishui was very polite. He was trying to calm the waters, but still, when all of this was happening, another man wearing young clothes appears and announces that all of the nets that they had put had been destroyed by a blue sword, who already we know who it belongs to. And this makes Shang Chang absolutely furious. At this point, I can only imagine that there was actual steam coming from his ears. He was so mad. And here we also find out that this is actually Jing Ling's first night hunt, and this is interesting, Shang Chang had actually rigged it in his favor, like putting all of the, all of the nets, but also actually, telling other clans to not go there, to retreat, to, leave Jing Ling to get the top prize. So that was interesting. Obviously this news about the spirit nets, he doesn't take it well, both because what they did, but also because I assume they must be very expensive. So as this was happening, he starts to stroke his ring. And apparently this is a bad sign, because whenever he starts stroking his ring with actually a weapon, a magical weapon, it's because he has an intent to kill. So obviously this is not good news. And this is how Chapter 7 ends. Chapter 7, I feel it was absolutely packed with interesting things, but I'm going to talk about them later when I finish. So in chapter 7, we start where we left off. Shang Chang is there stroking his ring, but then Shang Chang's compelled to restrain himself, to stop himself. And then he explains why, and I think the explanation is actually very interesting. And it always has to do with politics. One of the things that it says that I find interesting is that it says that after the fall of the Qingge Ni sect, which, what? How? Doesn't matter. I'm going to talk about it later. Then after the fall of them, and I assume obviously after the fall of the Wens, we only have 4 sects left. We have Gusulang, Langlin Jin, and what's the other one? Oh no, we have 3 sects. I don't know how to count. I forgot how to count for a moment. The other one that we have is New Meng Zhang sect. Oh, they put first the name of the place and then the name of the sect and then sect. Okay, yeah. Oh, so Langlin is the place where they are. Okay. I read this and I took notes of this, and I just discovered that. So well done me. So the problem is that we have the 3 sects left, and the problem with that, especially the problem that the Yang sect has, is that the 2 leaders of the Langlin sect and from the Gusulan sect, they are in a brotherhood, let's say. And obviously they have a much closer relationship that they will have for the Human Yang sect. So the Human Yang sect is more like to the side because of the personal relationship between these 2. And also Lan Wangji, he is the brother of the leader of the Gusulan sect. And obviously they are, and here it says the 2 brothers had always been in good terms. Yeah. I don't know why I find that such a, I feel like this is maybe told from, because perspective changes, like the perspective from the narrative changes. It's not always from Wei Wuxian's perspective, but sometimes it changes to others' perspective. And I feel like this is from, from Shang Chang's perspective, and it feels like, I mean, I don't know. It definitely seems to come from someone who never had a good relationship with a brother. Like, yeah, they are brothers. They have a good relationship. I feel like I mean, we know that it doesn't always happen, but that is the more natural thing, that they would have a good relationship. They're in good terms. Like, otherwise, maybe Lan Zishui would like somebody to attack Han Wenjun. I don't know. I find that very funny. So obviously, because of that, he can get into trouble with the Lan sect. So that's why, Shang Chang is trying not to, cause a problem, let's say. Also, the other reason that we have why Shang Chang doesn't want to fight Lan Wangji is the fact that they actually have never fought each other. And Shang Chang, it says, hated fighting somebody when he wasn't sure that he was going to win. And my dude, this wouldn't have been those cases. I'm so sorry to tell you. So he didn't want to fight him because he suspected that maybe he wasn't going to win. That was the possibility. Here we also have, because obviously Shang Chang mentions, or not Shang Chang, it's mentioned in the story that, Shang Chang has his sword and he has Xidian, which is this powerful weapon. But, and that Lan Wangji has Bishen, but he also has his, what they call here a Sither, I think, but I think it's the Guqin. And I'm probably going to continue calling it Wuxian. And here we find out that Lan Wangji's Guqin is called Wangji for some reason. And that is, I don't know what to think about that. So, essentially, Shang Chang doesn't think that he's going to win, or for him there is a possibility that he's going to lose. So because of that, he decides that it's better not to fight him. So he stands down. He essentially tells Jingling, take the punishment, that's it. But he does it in a bitchy way, in a way that, it's hard for Han Wenjun to punish a disciple from another clan or something like that. He does it in a way that it was sarcastic and, just unpleasant. Lan Wangji, however, he didn't give a shit. He couldn't give less of a shit about Shang Chang's tone. So, Jingling leaves. He's not happy about it. Shang Chang tells him, go away, go continue with the hunt, bring something. He also tells him that if he doesn't bring something, that I think he wasn't allowed to come back or something like that. So, nice. And then we have Lan Zixue, who offers to Shang Chang to return the spirit nets. I don't know if this means to return the ones that they use or maybe buy new ones, but Shang Chang refuses and leaves, essentially. And that is it. And at this point, after he leaves, Lan Jingyi, he starts criticizing Shang Chang. He didn't like his attitude at all. He didn't like how he was disrespecting the Lan clan and all of that. The thing about the Lan clan is that you're not supposed to talk about, other people behind their back. So he remembers that he's a member of the Lan clan and he shuts up. But I don't think Han Wenjun was too bothered. I don't think he cared. Then we have Lan Zixue, who greets Wei Wuxian. He says, hello, how are you? So, that was nice. Then we have Lan Wangji telling them, to all of the juniors that were participating in that night hunt, do what you can, don't force anything. So, what a contrast, in, let's say, parenting styles. So, then we have a very interesting line about, Lan Wangji's voice, and it says, the voice was deep and alluring. If one was too near, the tip of their heart would tremble. That is Wei Wuxian describing Lan Wangji's voice. It's not important for the story, but I felt like I had to say it. And also Wei Wuxian comments on how different Lan Wangji and Wei Wuxian are. And Wei Wuxian is also surprised of the fact that Lan Wangji acknowledged him, he nodded to him when he sees Wei Wuxian. I think Wei Wuxian nods to him, and then Lan Wangji returns the nod. And Wei Wuxian finds it weird because he thinks that Lan Zixue probably told him about what he did in Mo Village. So I think he thinks that maybe that's why he's nodding at him, acknowledging what he did for the juniors of the Lan sect. But it was a nice touch. He just nodded, and it also says that he didn't actually react when he saw Wei Wuxian wearing the makeup, which everybody does. Everybody reacts when they see the makeup. So Wei Wuxian decides that he can't actually take the prey from Jingling, so he's not going to follow that. And also he regrets what he said to him, essentially. The thing about the dad and the mother and all of that. And at some point, I'm skipping some parts, but again, otherwise this is going to be probably as long as the show is. It's going to be 50 hours. Wei Wuxian finds his donkey again. He just wandered off. He just gone. And now that the nets they haven't disappeared. The nets have been taken off. Then other cultivators have returned to the mountain to participate in the night hunt. And these cultivators, they were talking. Specifically, they were talking about Jingling and, how spoiled he is and a little bit about his story. And they said that the Jin sect and the Yang sect, they actually spoil them too much, that, that he's young, but he's arrogant, that he's rude. And one female cultivator said, like, why shouldn't he spoil him, like, considering that he's an orphan from such a young age? And somebody make a good point in saying that there is a lot of people who don't have parents and who are orphans and they don't act like him. And they start talking about Wei Wuxian, and they talk about how Shang Chang's eldest sister, how she took Wei Wuxian in, and how, because of that, her death was caused or something like that. Like, in the end, it ended up ending terribly bad for her and for her husband, all because of Wei Wuxian, somebody who, somebody who she took, and look after, essentially. So, not very good. And I would assume, not very good to hear for Wei Wuxian at least. And then we have that, according to these people, even Han Wenjun, they hated each other. Like, they were like fire and water. These two, they absolutely hated each other. According to them, anyway. So, Wei Wuxian doesn't continue listening to them because he realizes that he had taken the wrong path. And it's interesting because it said, speaking of it today, if it wasn't for Han Wenjun, and that is how it's like interrupted, and that is when Wei Wuxian finds out that he has taken the wrong path. And I don't know, I find that, obviously, I think what they are saying is like, if it wasn't for Han Wenjun, maybe they wouldn't be able to be there because he saved the day. But I feel like, the fact that Wei Wuxian took the wrong path, I couldn't finish listening. I don't know. I find that detail very interesting. So Wei Wuxian gets to a stream and he takes the makeup off. And then he sees his face for the first time because he hasn't seen his face. And he described it as handsome and graceful, but obviously unfamiliar. He doesn't recognize it. It was just a face that he didn't know. And it's very interesting that at some point, obviously he washed his face and there was water on his face and there was some drop of water and hanging from his lashes, and that when he looks down, they look like drops of tears. And I think here is not that they look like drop of tears. I feel like he's crying already. I feel like he's just crying. And I think this is supported by what it says after. It says that he talks about a decision that Wei Wuxian made. It's not clear what the decision is, but it says that when he made that decision, because I think there are several options, but I'm going to talk about the decision later. When he made that decision, that he understood completely what kind of thing he would have to deal after. He knew how the world would react to this decision. So I'm thinking it's probably taking demonic cultivation, but we don't know. And that, even though, and it says here, he thought that his heart was made of stone, like in the end, he was still human and he still have emotions. So I feel like this is why I feel like he was actually crying. Like, for him, this was showing emotions. But he was even ashamed of them, and he wanted to cover them, because I feel like he wants to appear maybe not emotionless, but maybe not vulnerable. I think it's important for him not to appear vulnerable. So I feel that's why he cannot even recognize, even in, at this level in the narrative, that he's actually crying. But it's obviously that hearing this affected him a lot. And he was sitting next to the extreme, just trying to recover after that emotional roller coaster. When the donkeys tried to act weird, like try to leave, and then he tried to tag him, like he tagged him by the collar, bring him something, bring him somewhere. And eventually Wei Wuxian decides to follow the donkey, and what he found is a qiankun, I think they're called, bag, and it's full of things, and he thinks that maybe this is a bag that belonged to one of the cultivators that were in the net and that it fell down. And one of the things that were included in this bag, among a lot of things, there were a lot of things included. One of the things that was included was a gloom burning talisman. And what a gloom burning talisman does is that when it comes in contact with a dark energy, it starts burning. So if there was a spirit close, then it would start burning harder. So what Wei Wuxian does is use this talisman to find a spirit. And he finds the spirit of an old man that is saying that, that something hurts. And when Wei Wuxian checks him, he says that he has essentially like a bloody hole in his forehead. But what was weird about the situation is that this man was actually dressed in a burial robe that was very fine, that was, looked like something that it was expensive and nice, and that it was obviously that he had been in a coffin and he had been buried properly. So it didn't make sense that this soul, that this was a soul of a living human had lost, because he had a proper burial, I assume. So he thinks that this ghost shouldn't have appeared here in Dafan Mountain. So he becomes worried because of this. So he decides to go look for Jingling and the group from the land cultivators. So he starts looking for them. He finds a group of cultivators, like from the cultivators that were already there, and he asked them like where Jingling and the Lan clan had gone, and they told him that they had gone to the goddess temple. And then we have like something about the goddess temple, like how is where it was, I assume, something like that. Again, skipping this part. And here we have that Wei Wuxian actually kind of connected, like the moment he heard about the goddess temple, and he heard a little bit about like how he was built, or not how he was built, because I think we have more information later, but when he hears about the goddess temple, it's like he connected all of the dots about what was happening. We never find out we don't find out in this chapter, because this is where it stops. But we know that he has connected all of the dots. He has reached conclusions, and he thinks that everyone had underestimated the creature in Dafan Mountain, that nobody had realized how serious the situation was. So this was chapter, what chapter am I? Is this chapter 8 or 9? I think this is 9, because it's supposed to be up to 10, I think. So let's just say chapter 9 or part 4. So in this chapter starts with a switch perspective. So we don't have the perspective of Wei Wuxian at the beginning. We have the perspective of the lands that are, they are actually in the goddess temple. And here is where we have like the story about the goddess temple. I'm not going to tell the whole story, but essentially what happened is that they found this rock that had taken, like, it had the shape of a dancing woman. So people took it as people created a temple and started to pray for them, to ask wishes for them. The story is a little bit more complicated, but I'm just a summary of it is that. And the Lan Juniors, they are in this cave, in this temple with the goddess, and it says that Lan Jingyi is using the compass, but obviously it's not indicating anything. And it also says that the temple was actually pretty dirty, but the Lans were not into it. And this is an actual phrase from the novel. Most of the people from the Gusulan sect had some degree of minor misophobia. So, interesting. That's all I can say. Interesting. And Lan Zishu says that it makes sense that it's not clean, because obviously with all the soul snatching that has been going on, it's very likely that people haven't gone to clean it, essentially. And as they were here just investigating, talking, Jingling appears, and he's super disrespectful about the people who use the temple. He says they're idiots or something like that, things like that. He also says something very ironic, considering where he comes from, but he says, the rural villagers don't work hard when they face difficulties, but instead pray to the Buddha and other things every day. And I would like to see Jingling complaining about people not working hard, because as far as I know, he's pretty rich. I don't think he has had to work hard in his life. So who is he to criticize these villagers? So nothing. Some random cultivators appear. They laugh at what he said, like, I'm not for that. So, this is the moment where Lan Zishu looks at the face of the statue, and he finds that the face is familiar to him, but he doesn't know why. And suddenly, for no reason, one of the cultivators falls down, and he seems asleep. He seems like he's sleeping, but when they shake him and all of that, he just doesn't wake up. So this is where everything goes to hell. Suddenly there is a red light, there is a waterfall of blood coming from the walls, the candles, they light up on their own, essentially just mayhem. Complete pandemonium. And thank God, Wei Wuxian appears and he tells everyone, just escape. Guys, just go. This is not a good place to be. Sadly, it doesn't matter if they leave, because the statue starts moving and she leaves. Apparently, now she can leave on her own. She start walking, essentially. The cultivators try to stop it, but nothing. He just continues walking, sucking souls. And the sucking souls is pretty disgusting how it's described, because apparently she does it through the mouth. Like, she opened the mouth, then closed it. It says, the stone mouth seemed like it opened and closed, and the swords in cultivators' hands dropped into the ground with two clangs. Their heads drooped, their souls were sucked away. So that's pretty horrific. In the whole confusion of the moment, Wei Wuxian is very anxious because he can't find Jingling, like it's a whole mess. And so he can't find the Lan Juniors, so he decides to talk to them. But he made a mistake of calling them children, which Lan Jingyi is not having. And, he's very offended that somebody like, I guess somebody like Mo Xuanyu, as far as they know, would consider himself a senior to them, just because he washed his face, apparently. So, Lan Jing is not having any of that. But Wei Wuxian tells them, like, just send a signal, send for Han Wanju. But the problem is that they use their signals already, like they use them in the Mo village, so they actually don't have any more signals. And apparently these signal phylacteries were only used, they only needed once in every 800 years. So twice in a few days, that seems a lot. But they don't have any more signals, and Wei Wuxian tells them that, Han Wanjun is going to be pissed, and Lan Jingyi is afraid that he's going to be punished to death by the Han Wanju. It's pretty funny. So, for Wei Wuxian, this is the perfect moment to teach something to these boys. So, in the midst of this absolute chaos, Wei Wuxian takes the time to teach them, because Lan Zixue asked Wei Wuxian how he recognized that it was the goddess that it was responsible for the spirit snatching and not the spirit. So Wei Wuxian does. I'm not going to go into his explanation. There is a very long explanation how he does it. He connects all the dots. It's great. Very good for him. I'm not going to go into the explanation. Suffice to say that, it is explained. There is one explanation. You can read it if you read the novel. And wait, I have to go now because this is a long explanation. So this is something that definitely took a while, but, they were just there, just talking, and suddenly the donkey started running the opposite direction, which is never a good sign. So that's when the statue appears again, and it appears, I think, in the most horrific manner possible, because first it's described the noises that it makes. It says there came a noise of chewing complete with crunches and slurps, and then they saw the statue not walking but crawling in the bush, its huge head on the ground and moving using its stomach. Absolutely disgusting. Thank God I didn't have to see this. I don't find this acceptable at all. And the problem with this is that supposedly if it's a high level creature, it's not supposed to eat like meat. People more like. So evidently she has moved on from souls and she has gone straight to creatures. And there's blood running out of her mouth, and she's just munching on an arm she had torn off. It's absolutely horrific. The whole scene is horrific. And Lan Zixue comments that this is not possible. And he mentions the Yilin Patriarch. He says that the Living Patriarch has said that high-level creatures only eat souls, that only low-level ones eat, meat. And Wei Wuxian says, why are you blindly worshipping this guy? His inventions were a mess. You have to take into consideration the situation. So, he goes into a little bit of a rant. The statue at this point started dancing as well. Apparently she was happy. And obviously she has had a lot of food. It was a great night so far for the statue. She started dancing, and that's where Jingling appears and attacks her with arrows. And this makes the statue stagger. And Lan Zixue tells Jingling to send the signal, maybe call somebody else because this is over our heads. But Jingling ignores him. He does nothing. He doesn't do it. Instead, he's determined to kill the monster himself. Wei Wuxian comments that, he's a pretty good shot, apparently, Jingling, but, in this case, it doesn't matter because apparently magical weapons were just useless against this statue lady. And Wei Wuxian realizes that, Shang Chang and Lan Wangji, they are both at the foot of the mountain. They are waiting for news, so they won't come unless they are called. And magical weapons are not an option. They are not working on this. So he decides that this is time for a little bit of dark sorcery. So that's exactly what he does. He takes the sword from Lan Zixue's, he chop a piece of bamboo, and he make a flute, and he start to doing his thing with the flute. Obviously, this is another thing that Lan Jingyi comments very loudly about, the quality of the music. Apparently, it's trash. But at this time, this is probably the only option that they have. And Jingling's still fighting this thing, and things are getting pretty bad. It's obvious that he's going to be defeated when we start, I wasn't there. They start to hear a tinkling noise coming from the forest as Wei Wuxian is playing. And for some reason, this sound gave many of the people who were there a sense of threat. And even Wei Wuxian felt like an ominous feeling, but he thought that since whatever was making the noise was actually responding to his summoning, and he was obeying him, then it was probably fine. So he continued playing. And that's where Wen, the ghost general, appeared. And everybody is absolutely terrified. Like, they had been fine fighting this, soul-sucking goddess, but the moment Wen appears, everything goes to hell. And they describe Wen as the Yilin Patriarch's right-hand man, and, a fierce corpse who should have been turned into ashes a long time ago. And that is the end of this chapter, which I think this is chapter 9, because the next one is chapter 5, so it must be chapter 10. So in chapter 10, Wen appeared and just stood there, his head lower, and he was actually waiting for orders. And it describes like what he looks like, and it says that his face is very pale and delicate, and it could be considered handsome, but in a melancholy way. But his pupils, they were essentially white. They were a cloud of white. And he also has some black lines in his, up his neck towards his face. And his, wrists and ankles were, they had cuffs and chains, and that was the tinkling sound that we were hearing before. But at this point, he was just standing there waiting for orders. So, Wei Wuxian was pretty freaked out about seeing, Wen, because he had assumed, for as far as he knew, Wen had been, what they call here turned to ashes, which I assume it means that he was burned alive, even before the siege that had led to his death. So he's confused as to why he would be here at all. In all the distraction, Wen appeared, he made a scene, and now the goddess is using the distraction to just pick up Jingling. Thankfully, Wei Wuxian saw it, and he started to play the flute, and Wen started to fight against the goddess. And essentially they fight. They fight. And in between this fight, they actually say why Wen is unique in respect to all other corpses. So we have low-level corpses that are completely unable to think on their own, and they needed orders to tell them what to do. And then there are powerful fierce... Oh, sorry, let me just hit the microphone. Then we have powerful fierce corpses. And these were usually what they call delirious or unconscious. And this is how Wen is different, because actually Wen, who was created by Wei Wuxian, was not only the strongest fierce corpse, but also he was the only one who was capable of actual thought on his own. So he, it's not like he was unconscious, it's not like he was delirious, it's not that he just needed orders. Normally he would be able to think of on his own. But the problem here is that, at this time, it seems like he wasn't conscious. So that was the problem. The good news is that Wen eventually ends up destroying this goddess lady. So she's destroyed, and now, a thing came out of this goddess that was it says like it was the core that this creature had created based on the souls that it had consumed. And apparently this core could be used to bring back the souls of the people she had consumed, or at least some of them. However, and interesting enough, the other cultivators didn't give a shit. The only thing that they gave a shit was Wen, because obviously Wen was just a bigger target. It was just a bigger prey. So everybody decided to attack Wen. And especially because they thought that he wasn't being controlled by the Yilin Patriarch. So maybe they actually, because of this reason, they had a chance. Maybe he was a lot, I don't know if weaker, or, maybe they thought it would be more stupid because it was being controlled. I don't know. I'm not clear whether they knew, how unique, Wen was, that he actually had, his own thoughts. But they thought that because, the Yilin Patriarch wasn't controlling him, that he wouldn't be as fierce, probably. So they started to surround Wenin. Wenin started to, defend himself essentially, just, react to that. So Wei Wuxian decided to change the tune that he was playing, to play something that was a lot more calmer, so maybe that would calm the situation. And the music that he decided to play is a melody that just drifted over his mind naturally. So this is something that maybe he was remembering from another time, perhaps. We don't know. So Wei Wuxian gives, he started to play this music, and Wenin leaves the cultivators alone. Essentially, he starts walking towards Wei Wuxian, and Wei Wuxian starts playing the music, and he wants to take, he wants to lead Wenin away. So he started to take a few steps back. What happened is that as he's doing this, he bumps into someone. And when he bumps into someone, the melody stops. And when he turns around, he finds Lan Wangji's eyes. And also a chilly scent of sandalwood, which I assume it's what, Wei Wuxian associate with Lan Wangji. So essentially Wei Wuxian thought, I'm screwed. He's screwed because Lan Wangji has seen him controlling a corpse. He's seen with his own eyes. So, there's no way Lan Wangji is going to let this go. It's not way he's going to be nice about this. However, Lan Wangji didn't say anything. He just grabbed Wei Wuxian's wrist. And Wei Wuxian thinks that a lot of people imitates the Yilin Patriarch, a lot of people uses the flute, so there is a way for him to get away with this, he doesn't necessarily have to be the person he believes he is, he doesn't actually have to reveal who he is, it's possible for other people to do what he's doing. So he actually continues playing, still with Lan Wangji grabbing his wrist. And he continues playing, and through playing, he orders Wenin to retreat. So Wenin goes away, he disappears, and Wei Wuxian thinks Lan Wangji is going to chase him, so he essentially grabs Lan Wangji back. However, Lan Wangji is not interested in Wenin. He's only staring at Wei Wuxian. And this is how, Shang Chang arrives. He arrives, and what he finds is essentially Lan Wangji and Wei Wuxian grabbing each other. That is what he finds. And this is where Jingling and Shang Chang meet again. Shang Chang tells him off because he didn't send the signal, but Jingling tells him you told me not to come back if I didn't get the prey. So Shang Chang decides to very quickly change the subject. And it says here that another detail that I find interesting is that many of the cultivators that were there then, they weren't just random cultivators, they were actually cultivators that Shang Chang secretly sent to assist Jingling. So they were young cultivators that were wearing just different clothing. I don't know, I find that interesting. At this point, Shang Chang finds out that Wenin had been there, and he can't believe it. He's incredible. And some snitch points to Wei Wuxian and tells that is the person who summoned him. Obviously, what they are saying is Mo Xuan Yu. Wei Wuxian and Lan Wangji, they're still holding each other. And suddenly everybody's looking at them. Everybody turns around and is like, oh, that's still happening. Suddenly they are the absolute center of attention. You can imagine that Shang Chang is not happy about any of this. He hasn't been happy in years, I think. So he starts rubbing his ring again, and we know what that means. So he says something like, oh, you're back, and essentially he attacks. However, Lan Wangji is there, so he stops the attack with an attack of his own from the Guqin. So Lan Wangji is essentially protecting Wei Wuxian. And at this moment, remember that Shang Chang said that he wasn't going to attack Lan Wangji for all of the reasons that he had, because of, he didn't know if he could beat him, he didn't know, he didn't want to cause, trouble with the other sex. Well, fuck that. He's going to attack him. So now he's definitely very into that plan. So he starts, a little bit of a fight between these two. And this is a huge show for the cultivators that are there. Like, they hide, they go in and hide, but they don't go away. They just stand there watching, because apparently they don't get to watch this kind of fights very often. Wei Wuxian, at this point, he thinks that this is his perfect moment to escape. He assumes that maybe Shang Chang is distracted, so, he decided to just leg it. He decided to run away. This has surprised the crowd, because it's obviously that, the moment he left the protection of Lan Wangji, that is the moment that, he was going to be at risk. So, he's attacked. He receives a blow of the whip. And after he does, Lan Wangji and Shang Chang, they are both completely shocked. And the reason they are shocked is that this whip, this ring/whip that Shang Chang has, Xidian, has the power to, for anybody that they whipped, if in the cases where a spirit has seized another body or another physical form, they would immediately separate. So once they received the whip, they would separate, and there were no exceptions. The thing is, Wei Wuxian didn't seize a body. He was actually offered one, and this was willingly offered. So that body that he's using, that's his own body now. So obviously there was nothing for him to separate. They couldn't, it wasn't something that he took by force. This didn't happen. And Shang Chang was going to whip him again, just to be sure, but Lan Jingyi stopped him, and he said, well, you already did it, and it didn't work, so, what are you doing? But Shang Chang couldn't accept that this wasn't Wei Wuxian. Like, he thinks, who else could have summoned Wen Ning? So that's when somebody explains, like, Mo Xuan Yu, who is Mo Xuan Yu, and maybe why they would have turned to demonic cultivation. So they tell him, like, that he was a foreign disciple in the Jin sect, that his spiritual powers, they weren't very good, that he was expelled for harassing one of his peers, and that he lost his marbles, according to this, and that maybe because he was bitter that he couldn't cultivate in the normal way, so he find the demonic way to cultivate. And also someone comments that he was also a cat slave, which means that he was gay, and this absolutely disgusts Shang Chang. So we know where Jing Ling's attitudes are coming from. And apparently the fact that he was a cat slave, it's something that this should discount him being Wei Wuxian, because apparently Wei Wuxian was really into the ladies. He loved flirting with the ladies, that it says that nobody knew how many female cultivators he had trouble with his charms. So obviously because the original Wei Wuxian wasn't attracted to men, it's unthinkable that he would look for a body of a man who was attractive to men, who was a lunatic cat slave, how they call it here. So that was one of the reasons why they think maybe it's not Wei Wuxian. The other reason that they give is that Wei Wuxian was actually an excellent flute player, and the way Wei Wuxian played the flute here today, it was absolutely atrocious. Apparently it was the worst thing everybody have heard. And this Wei Wuxian takes offense in this. He said, well, I haven't played in a few years, and I made a flute like in a minute. Like, you know what? I did what I could. So cut him some slack, please. So Shang Chang ends up being convinced about it, that he sent Wei Wuxian, but he still wants to take him away to interrogate. And Wei Wuxian, he doesn't want to, surprisingly, so he jumps behind Lan Wangji, because obviously Lan Wangji historically has been, he has been helping him a lot, at least this day. And here we find out that everyone in the cultivation world knew that Shang Chang liked to apparently, torture people to death, maybe, just people specifically that he suspected of being Wei Wuxian. So he much rather, grab someone and being wrong than just letting the opportunity go away. So obviously, he wasn't happy that Lan Wangji was there protecting Wei Wuxian. So he questions that to Lan Wangji, like, why are you just protecting this person? How did he? Because as far as they knew, they don't know each other. So why are you willing to go this far to protect him? And Wei Wuxian here, he makes a comment about, about him not being just interested in any man. Like, he's not interested in any random man that, specifically, he's not interested in people like him, especially like Shang Chang. And he was obviously trying to disgust Shang Chang on purpose, because obviously he's a bit of a homophobe. So, at hearing this, Shang Chang, who, and it says here that he hates being defeated for any reason, that even in this, he hates, even though he's a little bit of a homophobe, he hates being defeated in this, in somebody not choosing him. So, he asks Wei Wuxian, like, what is your type then, essentially? And Wei Wuxian, what does he say? He says Lan Wangji, because obviously he's also trying to provoke Lan Wangji. He's saying, he wants to make him disgusted as well. But, oh boy, Lan Wangji is not disgusted. He essentially turns around and says, mark your words. And then he announces to everyone, after knowing that he's exactly Wei Wuxian's type, he says, I will take this person back to the Lan sect. And Wei Wuxian is very confused. And that is the end of the chapter, and also the end of the, arc, of the arrogance arc. And it was a trip. These 5 chapters, they were absolutely crazy. So now that we have, read the chapter, well, I have read the chapters and I have told you about them, let's talk a little bit about my thoughts, my opinions, some, comparisons with the Untamed and all of that. So first of all, what did I write here? I sometimes my notes, they start well, but by the end of it, they have gone to hell, and I can't understand anything that I have written. Well, this is okay. Yes, one of the things that I find interesting about chapter 6 is the fact that Wei Wuxian is surprised that he's being mentioned, and I wonder, why are you surprised? Why are you surprised that you're still being talked about? That to me, I don't know. It seems strange. Because I feel like he was obviously someone that was pretty big, and he has seen that the sects at least use some of his inventions. So I don't know. I feel that it's not as weird that he was going to be mentioned, that he was still a topic of conversation for people. The other thing that I found interesting is the fact that when a lot of these people mention him, they usually mention him as Wei Yin and not Wei Wuxian. And I just wonder if that is maybe, taking away some of the respect, because obviously I know that Wei Wuxian is his courtesy name, and sometimes, obviously calling somebody by their birth name can indicate like intimacy, but I think it can also indicate lack of respect. So I wonder if that's a reason why so many people call him Wei Yin rather than Wei Wuxian. The fact that he's still wearing makeup also, obviously because I think it would attract more attention to himself, so I would have taken the makeup off. But I think at this point he's actually leaning a lot into being Mo Xuanyu and enjoying that role. So I think maybe that's why he kept the makeup. Then we have a lot of very interesting interactions with Little Apple that obviously we know. In these chapters, the donkey doesn't have a name, so we don't know that it's Little Apple technically, but we know that it's Little Apple. So a lot of interactions. I'm surprised. Obviously, in the Untamed, the donkey doesn't have that much of a personality. We do see it a lot more in the Donghua, but it's interesting to see how much personality the donkey is and how much a character actually the donkey is. So I actually love that. It's also interesting, all of the mentions about the disparity that exists between the clans, because I feel like, again, that is something that we didn't get to see a lot in the Untamed. Obviously, we saw other clans, and we knew that these other clans were not as powerful as the others, but you never felt like those clans were looked down on. Obviously, they didn't have the same amount of power, but I feel like the disparity here, it's a lot more present, and it's something that I think is going to come up, and it's something that comes up again in even in some of these other chapters. Something else, I feel it was something else that I wanted to talk about from the chapter 6, but I think it's gone. A lot of information we have. That is something that I often appreciate about this. There is a lot of information that obviously you don't get from neither from the Dongguan or from the live action, that obviously, like, how these things work, like why in the Dongguan, the Untamed, some things you just take for granted. They say this and you say, oh, okay, that's how it works then. So it's interesting to find out how things actually work and why they work that way. Okay, so let's move to chapter 7. From chapter 7, I feel like definitely Jingling is shown to be a lot more cruel than he was in the Untamed. In the Untamed, he's definitely spoiled and a huge brat. And obviously, I remember from the first that I started liking Jingling, like, in the second part, like, after Wei Wuxian's resurrection, when we see them there, and we see a lot more vulnerability and we understand a lot more his situation. But in comparison, I feel like in the one in the Untamed, he wasn't necessarily cruel. He was just a little bit of a bitch. So that definitely is something that is striking. And obviously, it's because Shang Chang is a lot more crueler in this, and it's a lot, he's portrayed in a more negative way. And Jingling is essentially a reflection of Shang Chang. So I feel like because in the Untamed, they make Shang Chang more sympathetic, by proxy, like by reflection, they did Jingling a little bit more sympathetic. But I think we'll see more of this, eventually when we see more of Jingling and we get to know him. I feel like maybe in time I probably will like him again, but for now he's not very likable. We find out more about Shinguan Shan. I guess these are things that we already knew, but what it caught my attention is that from the start we know about Shinguan Shao, and I think it makes sense because obviously I don't know if I don't think Shinguan Shao has the same introduction in the Untamed as he has in probably the novel. I'm basing myself on the Donghua. So I think it makes sense to start mentioning it now. So for now, we only have a mention. And I find it interesting, the version of Shinguan Shan. That's like, we know. Again, I say we know. I assume I know because I know what happens in the Untamed. But if it changes, then it's going to be different. But that this is the, we have this version, we have the official version of Shinguan Shan's dead, we have the unofficial version of Shinguan Shan's dead, and I suspect then we have what actually happened to him. which, as I said many times, I have a lot of feelings. I feel Shinguan Shan is an absolute piece of shit. I think he absolutely deserved to die, but I don't like the way that he dies. I feel like it's a horrific way. I don't like it at all. So I'll probably talk more about this when we actually get there, but just to leave it here. Then we have the information that at this siege that led to Wei Wuxian's death, Shinguan Shan was actually the second greatest contributor. So obviously it was the Jin clan and the Shang clan, the ones that were the more prominent ones there, which I guess it makes sense because at this stage, these sects were connected by marriage, by the marriage of Zhang Li. So I think it makes sense that these two are the more prominent, other than the obvious reasons. But I think like politically it makes sense why they are there. Interesting about all of the homophobia. There is a whole lot of homophobia, especially coming from Shang Chang and, by, extension, Jingling. So nothing that definitely Wei Wuxian gets insulted a lot based on that. But what I like is that he, he turns around and give it back. Like, he just answers. I feel like that. I like that about Wei Wuxian. The thing about Wei Wuxian using ghosts, I think I have to find out more about this because this is probably going to be, what do you call it? An ignorant opinion. Because I remember that there were 3 ways, and I'm basing this on the Untamed. I don't remember seeing this here, so maybe there is another explanation here. But I remember that when you find a ghost, there were 3 things that you have to do. You have to see if you can liberate it, or if you can't purge it, essentially, or in the end you have to destroy it. And that's when Wei Wuxian says there is a 4th way, which is to use the ghost to do these things. I am paraphrasing. I don't even know if this is the correct if I'm referencing the correct thing, but it seems interesting that Wei Wuxian seems to use this ghost for his own, not for his own amusement, because he uses them because he needs them, but he uses this ghost and, he doesn't try to put the ghost to rest. I think maybe it's because he can. I'm going back to that explanation of the 3 methods, and I assume that is because he can, and rather than destroy them, he prefers to use them. But again, that is just me assuming that. I don't know if there is another explanation here in the book. Another thing that I find interesting about chapter 7 is the fact that Wei Wuxian finds Jingling's sword familiar. I remember that at least in the Untamed, specifically where they were fighting Su She, but Su She was wearing a mask, and they said that he was even masking his sword. So obviously his sword was famous enough that they would recognize it. And this was Su She, so Su She was hiding his sword, so they assumed that they would know what Su She's sword looked like. So I'm guessing that in this universe, they pay a lot of attention to swords. So I remember when I was rewatching The Untamed, I was wondering why Wei Wuxian didn't recognize, Lan Zixuan's sword, knowing that, Jingling uses his sword. So I guess this answered. We already know that Wei Wuxian has some memory problems because of, the resurrection and all of that, and, how he died, I think, is also related. So it makes sense that he doesn't remember exactly, but the fact that it's familiar, to me, it makes sense. I absolutely love Lan Wangji refusing to speak to Shang Chang. I think it's just perfect. It's just perfect. I have to say I'm absolutely loving this Lan Wangji. What an icon. Love him. And it's one of the things that they changed in the Dongwu and I didn't like. And now that I read that it was like this in the novel, it's like, why did you change it? It was perfect. Like he doesn't speak to him. It's just, I don't know. Definitely I much prefer this version. What else? The fact that Wei Wuxian spends several paragraphs talking about Lan Wangji, describing like every little detail about how he looks, how he sounds, how he dresses, how he behaves. Like, there are so many details about Lan Wangji. I just, and at this stage, supposedly they were enemies, so why are you paying so much attention to this man? We know why, but especially considering that when he describes Shang Chang, he doesn't he describes in like one paragraph, and obviously their relationship is complicated. They have a very complicated relationship, but he still knows more. Like, he lived with Shang Chang for a very long time. Like, I feel like technically his relationship is a lot closer to Shang Chang to what it is to Lan Wangji, who supposedly was an enemy to him or was against him. So I find that very telling. And I like, especially when we get Wei Wuxian's perspective, like how much is not told explicitly, but is told in a different way, like what he's trying to not say, or what he doesn't say because maybe he doesn't realize, but what he's still expressing. The same thing as with the tears when he was washing his face and, they were droplets of water in his lashes, and he said, oh, they look like tears. And it's like, they look like tears because I think they are tears. I think you're crying. So I don't know. I find that very, very interesting. Lan Jingyi being very mouthy towards Shang Chang, and Shang Chang not taking it. And that's interesting because in the Untamed, he didn't question it. Whenever Lan Jingyi was very rude to him and questioned things, and again, you have to think that Lan Jingyi is a junior from a different sect, and Shang Chang is a sect leader, so you would expect him to be maybe respectful and not say things like that. We know that Lan Jingyi doesn't give a shit. He's going to say whatever he has to say. And in the Untamed, Shang Chang did nothing. He just took it. He just he went with the flow. This one, he definitely doesn't take it. He definitely doesn't like the fact that, Lan Jingyi answers back. And also interesting, Shang Chang ringing the competition so that Jingling would win, like making sure that he was going to win. I mean, I don't know. I don't like that. I feel that it's not good. It's not honest. It's not you're not teaching him anything. Just you're teaching him that you can easily win because you have connections and you have money and they allow you to win. I don't know. I just don't like it. And I remember what I wanted to say is the fact that when Wei Wuxian discovers the nets, he says that he feels that is not fair in a night hunt. But I remember when he was still alive, when they were doing the hunt in Phoenix Mountain was, I think, that who was it? Shin Si-shun actually makes the same point in saying that, Wei Wuxian using demonic cultivation and convincing all of the spirits to just trap themselves, that is maybe not, fair. That is not in the spirit of a night hunt. I still think that it's different, because, as Yan Li says, Wei Wuxian is using his own skill, and a skill that he honed, if you're using spirit nets, you're just paying money to get spirit nets and just putting them everywhere. There's no skill involved. So I would say that is the different. And I'm sorry that Shang Chang is doing that to Jingling. Like, I feel like you should leave it alone. And also the pressure that he put. I think we are meant to understand that Shang Chang is maybe, that he's harsh, but, that he shouldn't maybe take his words so seriously, I feel, especially because I don't know, we have in the last chapter, if it was the last chapter, when he says like, why didn't you send a signal and send me Jingling says, you told me not to. Well, you told me to come back with a prey. So I feel like Shang Chang sometimes speaks harshly, and that's just his way, that you're not meant to take it exactly to what he's saying. I feel, maybe, or at least in the Untamed. In the Untamed, the same thing happened. Like, I don't know about him rigging the competition, but definitely he tells the same to Jingling. And at least in the Untamed, I get the impression that it was him just being cranky rather than him actually saying, come back with something, or I'm not going to let you in, or I'm not going to welcome you anymore. But this thing about the competition, yeah, I don't like it so much. In chapter 8, we have the absolute bomb that is the fact that apparently the Chinga Ni sect is no more. It has disappeared, apparently. I don't know about that. I don't remember anything about that. Maybe this is something that's going to happen here, but obviously it didn't disappear, because I mean, again, I was going to say spoilers for the Untamed, but you know that I'm going to use spoilers. We know Nihuasan is organizing all of this. Like, he's the puppeteer here, controlling everything. So obviously there is a Chinganese sect. I'm guessing they meant the fact that after the death of Mindre, of Nimindre, that maybe the sect lost a lot of the prestige that it used to have now that it has Nihuasan as the sect leader. So now it's not considered like one of the great sects. I am guessing that that's what they meant, rather than actually, it's gone or disappear. I don't know. Wangji's name, Wangji's naming his Guqin Wangji. I have no words about this. I mean, I just wanted to say it again because I find it hilarious, but I have no words about it. Like, I would love to see, like, Lan Shishen's and Lan Chiren's face when it's like, oh, what did you call your Guqin? Wanji. What? Like, Wanji Jr.? Or I don't know. Like, I understand, like, I read the notes, I know what it means, so that I know why he might have wanted to, name him like that, but that is also your name. Like, I assume it doesn't get confusing because nobody speaks to Lan Wangji's Guqin, but still, it's, and the fact that then he was, giving Wei Wuxian some grief because he named his sword whatever. You name your Guqin your own name. So when I feel like I can love Lan Wangji anymore, he does this, and I just love him more. Then we have another thing that I find very interesting, and this is something that I have commented when we were watching, The Untamed, the disparity between the relationships among the clans, not only in terms of the smaller clans that we already mentioned, how smaller clans are at the complete mercy of the bigger clans, but also the disparity between the bigger clans. And in The Untamed, when, the Lans, the Jins, and the Nis, they make their alliance, there were only 4 big clans. So they very obviously left one out. Especially that it happens after the Wens completely destroy the clan. So, that was in The Untamed. In this one, it's obviously that it's felt the fact that some clans are closer to each other than others, and other clans are not close, so they need to rely a lot more in diplomacy or things like that, because they don't enjoy the same kind of close relationship that other clans enjoy. So nothing. Also how isolated that makes the Yangs, but well, that is, I feel like that we'll get to talk about that a lot more. Again, we have Wei Wuxian just gushing about Lan Wangji. Love it. Absolutely love it. Wait, is this the one? Is chapter 8 the one that Wei Wuxian talks about? Yeah, I think it's that one. When he talks about how Lan Wangji is he's always where the chaos is, and also how I feel like even that talks a lot about, maybe the hypocrisy in terms of the cultivators that, I think I'm going to say this a little bit later. Yeah, I'm going to say this a little bit later, so I'll save it for later. Yeah, I give you like a little bit, and then yeah, just force you to continue listening. But I'm going to say this when I'm talking about chapter 10. The other thing about Wei Wuxian being not wanting to be seen vulnerable when he was when he went to wash his face, and he had been hearing about how he ruined Yan Li's life and Shang Chang and also Jingling's, like, I mean, and obviously, I'm going for what I know about Wei Wuxian in the Untamed and to a lesser extent in the Donghua, but I feel like when Wei Wuxian heard this, he heard, it's your fault that Jingling is like this, because what you did deprived him of his parents. The fact that these people, when they were talking about, directly connected the fact that Jingling was an orphan to the fact that he was very spoiled. I feel like maybe Wei Wuxian felt it. It was, this is your responsibility. This is, it's your fault that he's like this. And I think that's why he's, washing his face and having water coincidentally on his lashes that looks like he's crying, but he absolutely isn't, apparently. But also I feel that is why then he feels the need to, not go after the prey, to leave the prey for Jingling, to go protect Jingling when he has to. I feel like obviously he does it because he's related to him, but also because I think he feels guilty. He feels that, you are my responsibility in a way. In chapter 9, we have again Jingling portrayed very negatively. He's, he's a little shit. I feel like maybe this is going to get better as we get to know him a little bit, but who knows? I don't know anything about the novel, so I know it's going to be a surprise, I guess. But definitely I feel like he's portrayed in a worse way that he was portrayed in the Untamed. So, that is interesting. And also the fact that he, even to his own, like, when he was going against the goddess, it was pretty obvious that maybe things were not going great and that he could get killed. So the fact that he was willing to get killed rather than disappoint Shang Chang, because Shang Chang told him to come back with with the prey, with the monster, that is very sad. But I don't know. I feel like we just gotten a glimpse of who Jinling is and what's his relationship with the others. So I'll leave it for when I know a little bit more. Another interesting detail here is the fact that Lan Shui says that he, thinks that the face of the goddess is familiar, and for what I remember, the people who were living in the Fan Mountain were a branch of his family, and he was actually living there. And not only that, but the other day I was watching, I'm rewatching the show and also watching reactions of the show. And I noticed that in the part where, Wei Wuxian, who was there, Wei Wuxian, Lan Wangji, Shang Chang, and Nihua San went to Dafan Mountain to, and they encountered this, fairy goddess and all of that. They went for the yin iron. When, at this point, all of the people who are living there were under Wen Chao's control, and when they wake up, they go there and they ask Wen Qin for forgiveness because they feel like they failed her. At that moment, Ashuan was there with them, and I think he was with Uncle Four. Like Uncle Four was holding Ashuan already there, so I think that's why he's familiar, because he was already living in this place, and maybe he had gone to the temple before. Again, this is I am assuming based on what I've seen in the Untamed, but I think maybe that's the reason why he looks at the goddess and it's familiar to him. I love Wei Wuxian teaching moment. I honestly love Wei Wuxian as a teacher, and I feel like this is something that suits him very well because Wei Wuxian loves to show off, and in this case, he gets to show off his knowledge. So I feel like I just love whenever Wei Wuxian is teaching juniors. I love it. The whole goddess statue was actually horrifying in this version. Absolutely terrible. Thank God, not even in the Donghua they put some of the things that I had to see here, that I have to read about. And I'm fine reading about it. There's like violence and all of that. I'm fine reading. I just don't want to watch it. But that image, I feel like if they had put that image of the goddess dragging herself in the floor while she was munching on an arm that she had ripped off, and the noises and the blood coming from, no, that would have traumatized me. So thank God, I didn't get to see this. Again, more mentions of Wei Wuxian as Wei Yin. I already said, say that is probably because, again, more because of lack of respect or something like that. But I feel it's weird because in the Untamed, he's always called Wei Wuxian. There are very few people that call him Wei Yin. I think Lan Qiren is one of them. But I think for the most part, everybody else, like, obviously everybody else that is not, his family, but even, Shang Chang calls him Wei Wuxian. Shan Li calls him Xian. There's very few people who actually call him Wei Yin. Actually, as far as I remember, I think it's just Lan Wangji and Lan Qiren. Maybe I'm wrong. Now I don't remember at the top of my head, but maybe. But I do remember that most people call him, Wei Wuxian. And with that, we move to chapter 10. In chapter 10, I feel like it's a lot clearer. Like when we have that moment that Wei Yin appear and Wei Wuxian is there and he starts playing the flute, I feel like the actions, like what's happening and why it's happening, what is happening, I feel like it's a lot clearer here in the novel. Obviously, especially in the Untamed, because it's the second episode, and in the second episode, you don't know what's happening, you don't know where you are, you don't know who these people are. In my case, you're very likely to forget Wen Ying until like 30 episodes later. But I feel like, everything happens in a flash, and then that's it. So, I didn't understood that Wei Wuxian was actually, like, yes, I feel like he was doing something with the flute, but I didn't realize that he was literally giving him orders about what to do. I feel like he was trying to control him, but I didn't realize there were orders being, given. And also why they were, he was doing this and he was doing that. So I feel, not only in this situation, but I think in general, obviously the novel gets away with giving a lot more information, and obviously both in the Donghua and in the live action, when you see these things, it's obviously a visual medium, so you're not going to get things explained. You're not going to hear a voice explaining things to you. So I feel one of the advantages of the novel is that you can find out these type of things that here they are stated, they are explained. With the core thing, with the core of this statue goddess, I feel like that is very interesting, and that is the thing that I was going to say before, and then I remember that I mentioned it here. The fact that this idea of prestige versus helping people. And I feel like for a lot of sects, it's obviously more about the prestige than actually helping people. And that is a very good example, the core of this creature that apparently could be used to be given the souls back. Or I don't know if to give them back or to liberate them or something like that. But the fact that everybody ignores that for the sake of getting Wen Ying. And it's not like they were defending themselves against the Wen Ying. It's not like Wen Ying was attacking them and they said, no, well, we have to defend ourselves now because otherwise we're going to die. No. What happened is that they saw Wen Ying, who they considered to be a bigger prey, something that it was going to make them famous if they caught. So they decided to go for that instead of helping the people who had lost their souls. So I feel that is something that happens in the cultivation, sects and clans. And that is why I feel like Lan Wangji is so unique in this sense that he doesn't care about prestige. He doesn't care about getting famous. What he cares about is actually helping people. So, I don't know. I find that, that contrast very interesting and very revealing, specifically, here. And again, great for Lan Wangji. Love the guy. To say something positive about Shang Chang, because I would say it again. I don't have any strong feelings about Shang Chang, at least in the Untamed. In the Untamed, I sort of like him. There were things that he did that I didn't like, but as a whole, I enjoy him as a character. Here, I keep myself neutral, or I try to. Sometimes I try to keep myself neutral for these things. But I feel like these 5 chapters, they don't leave him very well, they just don't make him look good, essentially. He doesn't look good in these chapters. I don't like bashing characters just because. If I say something about a character that I don't like, I'm going to have a reason for it, and this is the reason. I feel like in this character, in these chapters, his behavior was a lot more negatively portrayed. Let's just put it like that. I'm still willing to give him the benefit of the doubt as the story advances, but definitely a lot of things that came up in this, they're not great. But I would like to say at least one thing that I feel was at least positive with him, which is the fact that he sent cultivators from his sect, from his clan, to look after Jingling, like cultivators dressed in different clothing, to protect Jingling. I feel like, already he was rigging the competition, so, that I don't like. I feel like he could just done that. He could just send cultivators to, look after him, and maybe even giving him a hand if he needed to, but I like that particular, gesture, which is the only positive thing I can say about Shang Chang in these 5 chapters. I'm so sorry. The confrontation that we have here between Lan Wangji and Shang Chang is pretty much what happens in the show. Also, the whole thing about winning, everything is pretty similar. I feel like there weren't any big differences. Like, the only big difference that I could find was the fact that for some reason, when Wei Wuxian is going to make his flute, in the Untamed, he takes Lan Jingyi's sword, and in this, he takes Lan Zixue's. That is probably, and I think Lan Jingyi also gets choked by Wen in the show. But that are probably the bigger differences that we have. Also, obviously, we have the acting, which I think the acting is meant to make us see another thing about the actors. I will go that, I will say that a little bit later. But as for the confrontation itself, I think it's very similar. I love the fact that these people give as to why Mo Xuanyu is not Wei Wuxian, which is, well, obviously Xidian. That is the biggest, evidence. But then the fact that he's gay and the fact that he plays the flute badly. Those are the 2 reasons why this guy is not Mo Xuanyu. He's not. Case closed. Let's go back home. That is incredible thinking from these guys. Shang Chang and the demonic cultivators, definitely very negative, especially because in this, it's something that is more like everybody knows, like it's not obviously it's accepted and nobody's doing anything, and that's something else, but like I feel like in this is portrayed more like truth, like it's something given, something like we know, everybody knows it happens. And as opposed to the Untamed, where I always felt like this was more like a rumor. However, and this just came up to me right now, also everybody knows that, you know, Shinguan Shan died because he wanted to sleep with a lot of women and he couldn't. And that is the version that everybody takes. So I would take everything that everybody knows or everybody thinks they know with a huge grain of salt. However, in this case, I feel like maybe they are correct. I don't know. I just get the impression. I didn't see anything, contradicting it, and his behavior definitely seemed to confirm it, but I'm not sure. I'm still giving Shang Chang the benefit of the doubt. I don't know why he's homophobic as well. I just don't see he's also homophobic apparently as well. That is also that happens here. In terms of Lan Wangji surprising Wuxian at the end, absolutely love it. Obviously, we know that Lan Wangji already knows that it's Wei Wuxian, so he was going to take him anyway. But I love it how Wei Wuxian was trying to disgust him, and in the end, Lan Wangji just turns around and say, "You know what? I'm into it." I absolutely love it. It was just perfect. I feel like despite the differences in general, the Untamed kept pretty close to this. Like, obviously, a lot of the action is changed. A lot of the action, especially with with the goddess, that absolutely changes. Thank God, because I absolutely don't want to see that on the screen. There are changes. It's not the same, but I feel like in terms of the dialogue and all of that, it keeps pretty much the same. And that's what I mean about the acting. Because one thing is to read on the screen, or whatever you're reading, if maybe by the time you listen to this, you have the physical books and you're actually reading from a page. But one thing is to read it, and another thing is to see it. And I feel like the actor who plays Shang Chang did a whole lot of the heavy lifting into making Shang Chang a more, I don't want to say a positive, but maybe a lot more sympathetic that otherwise you would have felt. Because I feel like a lot of the time, and especially in this last part of the confrontation, I feel like, I don't know, there was more ambivalence about what he was saying. Like, there was anger, but there was also something else. It wasn't just Shang Chang being angry and wanted to take revenge. There was something else there. And that is what I appreciate about the performance of this actor. I have no idea about the names of the actors. I'm so sorry. I just... already the names of in the novel and in the story, they were a lot to learn. I know some of them, but not all of them, sadly. But, and I follow them in Instagram, so that should tell you something. But I feel like in that sense, the actor did a good job, because I think obviously in the book you can afford to present a character in a way and then making it more complex as the story advances. I feel like sometimes in TV shows that is something that you can afford, that you have to start laying the foundation a lot earlier than in a novel. So I feel like this acting, and obviously a lot of the changes that they did, a lot of changes in terms of Shang Chang, but I feel like sometimes it was this guy's acting that makes Shang Chang a lot more complex, because what I'm seeing here is more flat, essentially. It's just somebody who is angry and who's maybe not a very nice person. So I don't know. I just have to keep reading to see. So the next arc, I have no idea what it is. Let me check. And how long, not what it is, obviously I don't know what it is, but also I want to see how long it is. Oh, oh boy. Was this one? Yes, this was this one. Oh, yeah, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, it's going to take me a while. And I know that I'm very close to going on holidays. Actually, this is my last week of classes. After that, I have exams and all of that, but obviously no planning for classes and not actual classes. So I'm going to have a lot more free time. So hopefully I'll be able to get this very soon. I am considering whether to do, if we have an arc that is this long, whether to do it in a whole video, because this was 5 chapters and it's over 2 hours already, and I feel like a longer arc may take, I don't know, 3 hours, something like that. So maybe we'll get like refinement the first part and then second part, just to make it a little bit more manageable. So I guess that's it. Oh, there is some long arcs here. Yeah, I think I'm going to divide it into 2 just to make it a lot easier. So this is it. I hope you enjoyed it. And already in December, I don't remember exactly the date where the book was going to come out, but I believe it's around this day. So, again, I want to, just, for those who can do it, for those who have the money, who can spend it, who have it available to do it, just if you can buy the book, that would be great, especially because I believe in supporting these type of things, especially because I feel like when it comes to Chinese novels of this type, and there are a lot of them from what I can see, there isn't really, at least for us that live, not in China, but internationally, there isn't an industry that is doing it, that, is publishing these books, is publishing them in the, in the good way, with, actually good translators and with, good editions, things like that. I know that there are some editions that have already existed, but for the most part, they don't. And I feel like supporting these editions, like for this author, is maybe opening the possibility of this publishing house doing the same for other books that they might be interesting to read. So nothing. I feel like for those who can afford them, I definitely encourage everyone who can to buy the books. And, for those of us who can't, then we'll continue existing without them. And, until maybe they do like an ebook that is of all the books together and not separately and not expensive. Until then, I'll continue with the same translations that I've been working until now. So with that, I'll finish this. I'll maybe seeing you sooner than later if I'm dividing the next arc in 2 parts. So maybe I'll be able to do this, in maybe 2 weeks. I think I can manage 2 weeks, but I'm not going to make any promises because we know how those go down in this channel. So we'll see. I'll see you when I see you. Hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you at some point in the future. Bye bye.